What disgusting secret you found out about someone? A guy had a decently successful restaurant in my town. He was community-oriented, donated time and money to the town, just overall nice. There was something I always thought was off or fake about him. He tried expanding and buying a new restaurant, but needed a financial backer. They had a disagreement over something and she went missing. He took care of her son during her absence. Turns out, he murdered her and buried her in a shallow grave behind a manufacturing building. Really hit our town hard. After my husband died in 2020, I found out he had been having an affair with a 30-year-old. He was 55. She apparently aborted his baby. Everything he told me about his prior life was a lie. Second marriage for both of us, and he had been having sex with men since he was in his early 20s. To sum it up, I didn't know this man at all. We had been together 10 years and married for 6. I went to church for a long time and there was this guy who everyone loved. He was a kind of fat guy with silly humor. But he seemed a little off because he had autism. One day I was on YouTube and a predator catching video popped up. He was in it and his shirt was about Jesus. I sent it to the pastor and he was removed from the church. Now I want to work in cybercrime to catch these people at it. This happened when I was 16 and he was always complimenting me. Once asked if I was interested in modeling. When my grandfather passed away, we discovered that he did not exist. His name was not in any government registry. He was a normal citizen, paid taxes, had a license and everything, lived a long life, married to my grandmother for over 50 years, had multiple children, everything normal. Still to now, no one knows who he really was and why he had a false name. The kid that bullied me in grade 5-6 turns out his father was molesting him and his brother throughout their childhood. My great-grandmother was married to 3 different people at the same time. The men were from different branches of the military. She was collecting all 3 of their paychecks at a time. Yes, she is wild. That my mom cheated on my dad for 20 years and still hasn't told him to this day. I'm still trying to figure out what to do and how to go about the situation and exposing the truth about her to my dad. But I'm afraid he would die of a broken heart. Worst thing is, she cheated with my godfather who used to come to the house and drink coffee with my mom and dad every DOY. Not really a secret, but definitely a shocking discovery. There was a weird kid in my school that got expelled for touching himself in the library. He was always kind of odd, but he lived down the street and was always nice to me. I dated his sister briefly, and would always say hi when I saw him because I honestly just kind of felt bad for him. Fast forward like 10 years and me and my roommate were looking at people we went to school with on the docket finder as a joke. Remembered the weird kid and wouldn't you know it, locked up for violently assaulting children. It wasn't funny after that point. Exited out and never spoke of it again. One of my best friends was caught trying to meet up with a 13-year-old and was filmed and uploaded to YouTube. I worked with a woman for years. Knew her fairly well. Later found out that she and her husband were the ringleaders of the local swingers organization. My only problem with it was that she never invited me. My HS teacher was a pedophile. Made all the papers. This guy in my friend group's older brother was into young girls. Even though he was in his early 20s, he'd routinely go after girls as young as 14. However, this one time it ended very badly for him. He brought 2 14-year-old girls to the sports complex he worked at late at night. They convinced him to let them tie him up on a flagpole sort of thing so they could give him a show and then do him. They tied him up real good, pulled his pants down, took his car keys, and left him there. Well deserved. They hoard their own feces in their house. My ex accused me of cheating so many times that it finally drove me nuts enough to end it. I ended up finding out that she was cheating on me the entire time with multiple men, and one of those times was a threesome with 2 dudes. She's blocked on everything and still tries to get in contact with me any way she can. One of my favorite teachers in high school turned out to be a pedophile who had been raping the same boy for 5 years. I learned from my boss accidentally giving me access to his Amazon account that his middle name is Matthew. Had sexual fantasies about animals and tried to convince me that it was normal. I saw my grandfather only 2 times, once when I was around 4 or 5, and then again when I was about 13 at my uncle's funeral. I asked my mom what the deal was and she would just tell me he was not a good person. I just stopped asking until a few years ago and she gave me the whole story. He was a vile, sadistic, evil person. Abusive to his family in just about every way imaginable. My boyfriend passed away, and while his mom was withering away because she was so grief-stricken she couldn't eat, his father was carrying on an affair with a woman in Brazil. Met on business trip. He got a job offer there, and his mom thought it may be a good way to pull herself out of the grief and start fresh. They flew out to look at homes, found one they loved, and then on the plane ride home, he asked for a divorce. So she couldn't react, because she was trapped in a cylinder in the sky. Then he purchased and moved into her dream home and began their fresh start with his new girlfriend. His kids don't speak to him and he doesn't seem to care. His eldest child died and then he walked away from the rest of his kids. He missed their weddings, the birth of his grandchildren, everything. I liked him a great deal before his mask fell. I don't think this was a result of grief either. I think he was disgusted by his wife's inability to get over it. It reminded me of that ugly statistic about men who leave their terminally ill partners. That my father was a drunk who cheated on his first wife with prostitutes from his aunt's brothel.